Hello, I'm Carol Gader from Florida, USA,
And I'm Jackie Olmstead. I live in Phoenix, Arizona.
and we are going to talk to you tonight about fatigue, depression, pain, and a few other things that plagued us, hoping that it will help some of you out there that you can relate to this and that it will be a big help to know that you are not alone.
Excellent, excellent. Any other housekeeping you needed to do before we start?
No? Why don't you just
Okay,
start?
wonderful, wonderful. Well, first, I'll be talking to Carol first about her experiences because I can't wait to hear more of her story as well. So, Carol, as far as having fatigue and depression, which came first? What is the story for you about that?
I think it was fatigue after the birth of my first child and being anemic and having a husband who had mental illness. I was just under so much stress that I was exhausted and a little bit anemic too. So that's how it started. The little later, pain and sleeplessness and other things, but the pain went from joint to joint and muscle to muscle, and I just had no idea what was wrong with me.
Hmm. Do you think that it was part of the sleep deprivation, that typically comes with having a newborn? Do you feel that it was part of that?
It could be, although she was an awfully good baby. And I
Oh,
trained her in about a week to sleep all night by feeding her late at night
mm,
because with my pain, I was just up late at night. Um, so it could have had something to do with it because you don't get as much sleep naturally. Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Well, and then how do you think um, these these problems that you were having with the sleep, uh, the fatigue, and how did you feel that it affected your life overall? What parts of your life were affected?
Yeah, it affected my whole life. I just had to sleep actually as much as I could get because I had to sleep when during the day in order to take the evenings, and I don't think I was the kind of wife and mother I had always visioned I would be. And then, of course, I left my husband after the second one came a few years later because I couldn't live with the danger he possessed to my children and me. And
Mm.
that added more strength of being single mom and all. It was very difficult. And I knew the stress was taking a toll on me. But when you're under it, you just have to go through it.
Do you think that you're probably on, I think that it's like fight or flight. You probably had the fight or flight chemicals
Yeah,
running
I
through your
think
body.
you can't help but be in that,
Sure.
because everything bothers you and the pain, that alone can create the fight or flight. Yeah, nowhere to run.
Well, and then would you, at that time, did you have people you could go to ask for help?
After I left my husband and went back to my hometown, yes. My parents had me out there every Sunday for dinner, and because I had no washing machine and no dryer and no um, dishwasher, and we used cloth diapers, believe it or not, in those days. So every night I was washing the diapers and hanging them. But on Sunday, I got to go to my parents and eat, and I would do the sheets and the rest of the wash, and they were a great support to me, thank heavens. And the church they were in gave me a lot of furniture so I could, because I just left everything. And so they helped out outfit my apartment, and yeah. So yes, I did have support at that time, which helped a great deal.
That's, oh, fantastic. That's so good to hear. And by the way, I relate with the cloth diapers. I actually chose to do cloth diapers myself because of the health benefits. So,
Yes, yes. And the landfill problems today.
for sure. Let's see. So, what suggestions did your professionals have for your fatigue, though? Did you feel that you were getting support for that?
Um, they did give me some injections of iron, but I was hoping they'd tell me what really was wrong with me with the pain. I
Mm,
could understand my exhaustion, but the pain, what was that about? And it
mm,
would jump around my body, and they had no idea. I went to several specialists, and I think in the end they thought I was a hypochondriac. And I knew I wasn't. I knew it was all real. And I bet a lot of you feel the same way. You are going through stuff that is so real. And
mm.
it's hard to, when you don't have professionals back you up and, or at least tell you what's wrong with you, it is hard.
So they didn't even give you any kind of diagnosis or anything, yes? Is that right?
No, but finally they said in that day, they said fibro. This was quite a few years ago when my children were young. They said it was fibrositis, which now is fibromyalgia. But
Mm.
at the time, they didn't have a real diagnosis. Now, doctors tell me that a third of their patients have this problem. That's a lot of people, and
Wow.
mostly women.
Yeah, that's significant.
It
So,
is.
and then just a couple last questions. And as far as what did you do then if they just really didn't know what to do for you? What did you do for yourself to help yourself?
Well, at first I was teaching when I met my new husband and married him. I was teaching, and then now I had support and another child, so there were five of us. And I told my husband I had to take a sabbatical, and I had to find out what was wrong with me and how to heal myself. And I did a lot of things over a period of many years trying to find things that would help me. And yes, I did find some things. And I never went back to teaching because I felt that I had to help other people who were suffering from this. And because I suffered from it, I knew a lot of other people who maybe not as bad as me, but they were having problems too. And I felt maybe it was my calling to help. So, yeah, and I'm glad I did. I
That's
think I have helped a lot of people.
that's so wonderful. Well, so do you feel that you did actually get rid of and we were talking about depression too, where you do you feel that you're rid of the fatigue and depression at this point?
Yes, look at this. I mean, if you know anything about fibromyalgia, you can't do that. You just can't. The pain is so bad. You don't lift. It was hard for me for a while. I had to tip my head over and comb my hair like this,
Wow.
and I could never reach the top of my head. And picking up my children, it's just horrible. Because the muscles just give out. I can remember how holding a bag of groceries, and my muscles just gave out on me, and down they went. Well, I thought maybe I had MS at that point, but no, it wasn't MS, and I'm totally free of it all. No more pain or anything.
That's
So thank heavens.
that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that.
Me too.
Okay, last question. So, what suggestion would you give people to if they're hearing your story and they're suffering from these things, so fatigue and depression, what would you suggest to them?
I would suggest number one, don't put it off. Do something now, whatever it takes. Stop everything you're doing. Find out what's the matter. You may need a doctor. You may need a mental health person to deal with some traumas that you have gone. You may need a dowser, which I am, to help you figure out what it is. But there are so many wonderful things out there now that perhaps weren't there back, 30 years ago. And so find out what problems you have. And from there, you might find out. I know supplements can help you with the energy problem, and they practically changed my life, just taking supplements and getting my energy back, and
Mm,
other things like heat for the pain. I mean, there's just so many things. And I can't wait to hear what you have done to help yourself. But
well,
yes, I it took me a
wonderful.
few years and I got completely well. And no, I did not go back to teaching.
It must be wonderful for everyone to hear that there are a lot of solutions, that there are a lot of ways. So I love all the things you mentioned because I think those therapies can help people with all kinds of symptoms too. But for sure, yeah, I love your advice. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you, Jackie.
Mhm.
Now I'd like to ask you some questions since you had similar problems.
Hmm.
And I'd like to ask you which about you, which came first, the fatigue or the depression?
Hmm. For me, probably depression. Um, and probably I would say that because I was pretty young. I was diagnosed with depression at the latest when I was in high school. And so my family moved around a lot. I've moved well, the average is definitely different now, but I'm 56 and I've moved over 45 times in my life.
That's a
And
lot of times.
yes, and so growing up not having, it was on the average of every 10 months while I was, with my parents. So um, that contributed a lot to depression. It really did. And also then around the same time I was diagnosed with the irritable bowel syndrome. So it was like a lot
Mhm.
of things kind of came to hey, there's something wrong, that, and I was definitely depressed.
Mm.
Going into high school I believe I was a junior. So coming into a new high school as a junior, and I don't think I had an accent anymore, but I lived in North Carolina for a while. And so,
I think you got rid of your accent.
yeah, yes. Well, when I moved from North Carolina, well, first of all, when I moved to North Carolina, I had the Yankee accent. And then, so they made fun of me down in the South. Then when I moved to the North, because I acclimated, then they made fun of me because but actually, they kind of, it was more endearment when I moved to the North. They're like, oh, you're just a Southern belle. But anyway, so I was, and it's interesting later on, I I was going to a psychiatrist when I was pregnant after having my baby, my my daughter, and he just said, and I'll never forget this because I'm surprised that he says you're just a depressive person, and I was like, oh, so you're permanent, you're just gonna always be having um that what is the word, like, characteristic that'll always
Chronic.
chronic. You're just gonna always eventually go back into depression, and that's your normal. And I was like, it's not normal. I get suicidal. Um. Anyway. So yeah, that guy. I just stopped going to that guy because
I bet.
yeah, I was, and yeah. So that was when I probably would say not the last time I was in severe depression, but when I was going through postpartum, and I was also going through separation and eventually divorce there as well. So that our stories coincide with that scenario, and that was rough. That was one of the most hard times in my whole life.
I agree. It's very, very difficult.
Yes, and so let's see. So yeah,
So
I
did
would
the professional give you some advice of what to do or not when you finally
well
found a good one?
back in high school, I mean, I did go to therapists. I went to therapy, and I told them what was going on, and and they were not very helpful. They had no suggestions at all. And in fact, I don't even remember anything. They just had me come back and talk, and it really didn't help. Let's see. Later on, then I self-medicated in college. That was definitely made it worse. Let's see. And
Did they
then
give you a diagnosis? Did anyone give you a real diagnosis?
I think that they just said you're just depressed. And I said, well, yes, I am. Like,
Yeah, I am, but I won't want it. I don't want to live this way.
yeah. I was even, I was going to aerobics back then, back in the 80s. I had my aerobics gear on, and I did that. And that was actually, that was one thing that I did. It helped pull me out of a lot of it, but it was not a complete solution. And I would say that the fatigue stuff started in later.
What started later?
The fatigue.
The fatigue started later after years of depression. And did you sleep all right?
I I don't remember my sleep patterns back then. I mean, I just was really, really not in good mental space for many years. Um,
Well, when did you finally get rid of, and which was it first, the fatigue or the depression when it finally started to go away?
I think so. I think that the depression was handled first best
Okay.
only because, and I'm not recommending this, but at the time, um, the the therapist, the doctors I was going to, because I was a single mom, I was very suicidal. I was also going through a very bad relationship after the divorce. Anyway, it was kind of urgent, so I went on medication, antidepressants. And I'm only mentioning it because it did help to get me chemically back to where I felt at least like a level where then we could work with it, to actually start talking about it. And at that point, I immediately asked them to start cutting me off. I need to taper. I got off it as soon as I could. Carol, I was only on it for a year because I knew that it was not going to be long term good thing to do.
But it kind of did help you kind of break that.
It did. It got me to a level of, okay, now let's start handling. So now you want to be alive. Now you see your daughter is, she helped me want to live on this planet. I'm very blessed and grateful.
Children do that.
Yes, yes, it wasn't, she didn't have to do much. She just herself. But I needed to, even at the beginning, that was not enough. I needed the extra. So so we were able to deal with that, but then not too long after that, um, that's when um, that's when I was diagnosed with the celiac, because um, I just could not eat right. I couldn't. Everything I ate gave me indigestion. I was eating,
Yes, that was our last talk, and we both had
yeah,
that too. Yeah. Well,
exactly.
what suggestion would you give someone who is suffering from depression and fatigue? What suggestion? Because you and I both kind of took this upon ourselves
Mm.
because we weren't getting help from the professionals, which is sad. And I think there are better, maybe some better professionals if you can find them, but we weren't getting help. So, what did you do that helped you?
Well, I definitely agree with what you said. Number one is immediately start asking questions of the current medical team that you have. Reach out to who you have now, and start asking questions. I had to go through 4 different doctors, by the way, um, to find out what was causing the fatigue and the depression later, because I still was having fatigue, and then my depression got worse even after I got off all the other stuff. But it was because of the other medical complications. So by going to these by the fourth doctor, and I kept insisting. And so my number two would be become your own best patient advocate,
I agree.
and do not let them dismiss anything that you're saying. And if they do, fire them immediately, please.
I agree.
And you have that right as a
Yep.
patient.
Yes.
People, a lot of people don't know this, and a lot of people don't realize it. They go because of the whole medical system we have, you know.
Right.
It's only because that's what we've been told. But listen, you keep asking questions. I mean, I've gone into a doctor's office and they started kind of talking to me really not very nicely. And I said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm not even going into the appointment today. You know what? Thank you for assigning this time. But after this today, I'm going to go to a different doctor. This is unprofessional and unacceptable. And I said it pretty loud because I felt like everyone needed to hear what I was saying in that office, and that I was not going to accept this. And there are a lot of situations like that. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because that is something that is a problem where we can take back. So what? Okay, so the negative stuff's happening. What it takes is for us to stand up for ourselves. If you don't feel comfortable yourself, bring someone you trust with you and have them stand
Good
up for you.
advice.
Yes, because you might feel kind of like, but I don't wanna say anything. I don't wanna be mean. I don't wanna, I've been going to this doctor for 15 years. I don't want to say something like that. Well, guess what? Your friend, your loved one will ask questions, and I have a whole thing. I have an old video. I don't know where it is. Just some questions how to ask the doctor. Say, I need your support. I need to find out. And as a patient, I have a right to ask. So please, will you help me? That's not mean. That's not, you're fine. But if you practice that, you practice in front of the mirror. And then when you go in, have your list of questions.
I
Anyway,
always have my list of questions. I agree.
so
Yep.
those are my two things. Yes, I agree with you for so much.
Mhm. Well, I do think that you have to find your team of support. And, when I moved from New Hampshire here, we were going back and forth for quite a few years as snowbirds. And I couldn't find a dentist. I couldn't find a doctor. I had quite a time. And finally, I found a holistic doctor because I had a holistic doctor up north finally. And she was such a help, and she listened, and she finally got off all medical insurances because she felt they were holding her to 10 minutes each patient, and she couldn't take that. And so she said, I've got to be free, but her prices weren't that bad. And so we paid them because she listened, she was good, and she used alternative. When I had a terrible back problem, she got bees and she had them stinging me back there. And I'll tell you, it worked. So you've
Wow.
got to find the person that will listen and will help you and really cares. And so now I've got a team down here that is much better. Maybe not perfect, but pretty good. And I happen to have a chiropractor who is much more
Mhm.
than a chiropractor. My goodness, I think he's studied everything under the sun. He can fix ankles that are twisted, and knees and hips and back and necks and things that you wouldn't even think of. So he is wonderful. And some of my other team are pretty good, and they at least listen. And if I say I really need to go see a specialist on this, they don't give me any trouble. They say, okay, why? And I tell them, okay, that's it.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. And I think the most important being an advocate for yourself, which you said. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jackie. I hope what Jackie and I have talked to you about will help you to be an advocate for yourself, to know that you're not alone, and to get the best help you can get. You don't have to live this way, really. They tried to tell Jackie this was her. Uh-uh. No,
Mhm.
life is a joyous adventure. And you want that joyous adventure. You don't want to be in the doldrums feeling lousy. You can get better. You are very powerful. And
Mm.
so, yep, anything
Yeah.
you want to add, Jackie, that would
No.
help be helpful to people.
Amen. Just yes, I was perfect.
Okay, and I want to say that Jackie and I are going to do a little talk next time on, you want to tell them?
On I believe we decided on single mother
Yes, single
living,
moms, since we
being
were
a
both
single mom.
single moms, and there are a lot of challenges being a single mom, as you know, if you are one. And even if your husband is away a lot, like in the military, there are a lot of challenges when you're the sole person in the family, taking care of the family and mostly working too. So we're going to talk about that next time in the hopes that some of you out there will listen and it will help you. Thank you. And we'll see you, Jackie, next time. And you have a great vacation.
Thank you. Have a
Okay.
wonderful day.
Bye, Jackie.
Bye.